Hi, Rhonda. I wanted to respond to your post as no one has yet. So here we go. I uh, appreciated the depth that you have in here, just explaining the culture that Jay is coming from. As the African American culture, kind of the communal sense of identity, whereas the corporate "we are, therefore I am" is key to address there, because I think that's a big part of Jay's problems there with the church, because what he believes he is, the I am part, doesn't seem to match the group or community part, especially at the church that he's at. And I know it's caused him a great deal of distress, because what he believes spiritually is not what he is seeing presently. Whether you can consider that doubt as a Christian, or just lack of faith, or however, there is that distress, which is what he's seeking help for primarily. Sometimes this distress does come from just a miscommunication with leaders within the church, as you stated. I don't believe that there was a time frame that Jay had been attending this church that was stated. So I think if it was a shorter period of time, it might be easier for him to find another smaller, closer knit community maybe to break into. Although closer knit communities can be also difficult to break into, because everyone knows each other, and it just it's a different dynamic to walk into and feel comfortable. Now, I do have another statement, which is, I think, a big premise of this class. And it has some to do with the counseling side of it, but it's a bit more of the biblical side of it. Because I know spirituality is very big with the African American church and culture here. But the question I have is, and I'll try to answer it because it's twofold. Does God change culture, or does God work through culture? Okay. And what I mean by does God change culture? Like, once we become a Christian and decide to follow Christ, then I mean there's like a set of beliefs that we're supposed to follow. I mean, you could point just strictly to like the Ten Commandments, and that's like the law, the do's or do nots of Christianity. So is it when we become Christians that we have to adhere to this new culture that we don't know anything about? And it doesn't matter what culture that we come from initially, that we have to identify as that. Because if that's the case, that has different implications of how I believe we would speak and counsel Jay. I think it's more of this latter or second part, where it is God that works through culture. And what I mean by that is it's not that there's one specific culture in the world that's more Christian than not. Okay. And then the reason why I say that is when the early church started with the Jews, they thought, well, because Christianity started with the Jews, Jesus was Jewish. When you became part of the Jewish sect and you followed Jesus of Nazareth, then you had to become a Jew. You had to become circumcised. You had to do certain things to be saved. And in much of the New Testament, Paul is talking to a lot of the church about, no, they don't have to convert to a culture. It is a religion that they're converting to. The Gentiles don't have to get circumcised. You don't have to change your food restrictions to become a Christian. And I think it's the same sense here, where with Jay, we don't have to change necessarily the culture of the church, but change how he sees his identity in Christ. Now, it is an identity that it's this identity that I may not be able to define right away with meeting with him, but I can work with Jay to help him identify what his identity is. And he can still play his role in the broader culture of his home church or even his substance abuse addiction group, he can still play a role in those different different avenues of life. Yet, it is his identity with Christ is what gives him this strength, and he can self-identify as that, and from there have the grace and strength and lean upon God to move forward and not be overcome by that addiction, not be maybe overcome by the frustration that he has there with his church leaders, because maybe it's just a communication issue, or maybe there is a deeper issue where he does need to move churches, but that's not really clearly stated in this pre yeah in this pre little part for him. So anyways, thanks for listening, and I rambled on for way too long, so have a good evening, and we'll go from there.